Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Glad you can join me today. I'm at the Hornibrook Bridge fishing pontoon and it's 11:30 in the morning, early November, and I'm breaking all the cardinal rules that I tell everybody. Don't shoot in the middle of the day, especially in summer. The light is bad. Well, today I am going to break the rules, and this is the reason why. Got really grungy skies. We've got an overcast day. It was bucketing rain this morning, and I was just thinking, like, I gotta get out. I want to get a bit of rain and all that, but by the time I organized myself, the rain stopped and a bit of sunlight came out, and you're like, well, that's not what I want today. Then the clouds started coming back over, and look at the scene we have in front of us here. Now you can see we've got the fishing pontoon on the left here, and this is going to be our subject, but we're not putting it bang in the middle. Been here quite a few times, but I haven't been here for at least 2 years, and when I got here, I did what I always tell people to do. Before you set up your camera, just walk around and take a few shots and see the composition that you want. I had an idea of what I wanted, but because of the way the clouds were, I said, okay, well, there's 3 positions that I can take my photos from. That's exactly what I did. I went to position 1, took a photo, and go like, yeah, that's pretty good. So hang on a minute, let's move to the left here again. Position 2, and I looked at it like, well, I'm cutting half the pontoon out. The first one was good, you can see the walkway to the pontoon. The second one, I've just cut half of the pontoon. And go like, that's not what I want. Let's back out a bit. Let's come down about 5-6 meters back from the pontoon and angle the camera towards the pontoon. So my gear today, my Nikon D500, the Takina 11-20, and my focal length is 16 mils, and I've already got a polarizer on there. Now my white balance is set to sunny. I could shoot in manual white balance, but I get the habit of shooting a preset to show people what it looks like in JPEG form, because remember I showed that all my photos taken during the video are JPEGs. I've set the white balance to sunny. If I was shooting in manual Kelvins, I'd be around 5,200. I've taken also a photo in cloudy, and look at it. It's just a little bit warmer. This is not what I'm seeing here. The clouds are very blue. Sure, when I get home, if I feel that, yeah, it's a bit too blue, because I'm shooting in RAW as well, I can warm it up a bit. At the moment here, looking on my camera, the sunny white balance looks really good. I'm shooting at f11. Why? I want the maximum depth of field possible. I could go up to f16 on this lens, but f11 is great. And I'm shooting at ISO 100, and my shutter speed is set to 1/60th of a second, and the shutter speed is used to balance out the exposure. So I've set the aperture f11. The ISO is ISO 100. So remember, we have a triangle, our exposure triangle. We have ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. So I've set the ISO, I've set the aperture. The last one in the triangle is my shutter speed, and I regulate that to give me a correct exposure. Take a photo at 1/60th of a second. Now that looks really good. I'll look at the histogram. Beautiful. I'm just under the edge here. This looks really nice. 3/4 of my image is to the right hand side. There's hardly any shadows, but today this is not what I want. I'm in the position I want, but I don't want a fast shutter speed. I want to smooth out the image here. The clouds aren't moving very fast, so I'm not going to end up with sort of a really washed out clouds. If the clouds were moving really quickly, I'd have streaky clouds, which would be perfect. Today, I'm in a position here where I'm looking at the sky, the clouds are hardly moving, so I can use an ND filter. Now, I'm not going to waste my time using a 6-stop. A 6-stop isn't going to give me anything today. I really want to go to a 10 or 15 stop. I want to show this is a time where you can use a 10 and even the 15 stop. Let's put on our 10 stop ND filter. So I've got it all set up here already. Now I've got the 10 stop ND plus I've got a 3-stop medium grad filter. Why? Just because the sky is slightly brighter than the foreground here, and the 2 of these together will be perfect. Now put it on here, make sure it's nicely hooked up. And if you're new to using ND filters, these filter holders here, they have just very small little teeth. Make sure that they're very well hooked on, because if they're not, they drop. These are glass filters, around $200 a pop. I've had one break because I wasn't careful enough, and it hurts your back pocket. How do we make sure that we have a correct exposure? I have an app on the phone here that I use to work out what my exposure is going to be. As you can see, I'm in my office I'm no longer at the Hornibrook fishing pontoon. Unbeknown to me, my wireless mic died. The batteries just failed. 8 minutes into the video, I lost audio. The rest of the video I'll just do from my office here. I end up taking some great pictures, and I'll share the photos now, but also how I took them, because this is what the whole video is about. How to photograph long exposures in the middle of the day. I use an app called the Liebig Stopper app. So I click the Liebig Stopper app and we have 6 stop, 10 stop, and 15 stop. Now I was using a 10 stop filter. I click on the 10 stop filter and my shutter speed before I put the filter on was 1/50th of a second. I just dialed in 1/50th of a second. The corresponding figure using a 10 stop filter was 20 seconds. I just dialed in 20 seconds on my shutter speed and took a photo. Remember, I was using a 2-second timer delay. You really need to put a 2-second timer delay or using a shutter remote when you're doing long exposures. Just by pressing the finger on the trigger is enough to actually give you a bit of motion blur. We took a photo and this is what the JPEG looked like on the camera. So this is the image with just 1/50th of a second. This is what the image looked like with the 10 stop filter at 20 seconds. Remember I said that this KNF concept filter has got a bluish tinge, and you can see in the photo here, it's quite blue compared to the image without the 10 stop filter. If you were taking just JPEGs, then you would adjust your white balance. Now I was using the sunny white balance, daylight, around 5200 kelvins, so you could increase it to cloudy or even to shade to warm your image up a bit. But I just left it alone to show you the difference between what the image looked like without the 10 stop and what the image looked like with the 10 stop, and to show you sometimes the problems you have with color cast. Sometimes it's not too evident if you're using just one filter, but when you start layering filters like I did this morning with a 3 stop medium grade filter and then the 10 stop, then the color cast can really be exaggerated. This looked really nice. I was happy with this, but I wanted more. The whole point of going there today was I really wanted a long exposure just to smooth out the clouds and to bring that water just to be baby smooth. I took the 10 stop filter off and then I put the Hader 15 stop ND filter. The exposure was going to be close to 9 minutes at ISO 100. I decided to increase my ISO to 200 because this doubles the amount of light into the camera, which halves my exposure time. And this is what I did. And this is the image that I got. Look, the water is just so smooth. And look at the clouds. They just whispers there. And this is the beauty of the 15 stop. Now, if I had shot this at ISO 100, then my exposure time would have been over 10 minutes. And that was just too long for me. So I decided to increase the ISO to 200 and cut it down to 5 minutes. Now, something else you have to remember when you're doing long exposures like this, when I did the 10 stop, it was only 20 seconds, so there was no need to use in-camera noise reduction. If you're going to shoot a long exposure longer than about 30 seconds, then you should set up your camera for in-camera long exposure noise reduction. So on mine, I just go to menu here, and in the camera menu, it says long exposure NR. By default, it's normally off. With the 15 stop, I clicked on and clicked OK. Now what this does is the camera takes a photo for 5 minutes. Then it works for another 5 minutes to take all the hot pixels out. You don't have all these little colored spots around your image. It was 5 minutes exposure, 5 minutes noise reduction to give me a total of 10 minutes. And the image turned out really nice. Now, I decided to wait a little bit longer because I could see the clouds were moving about, and around 10 minutes later, I got a bit of clear sky, still with a lot of cloud about, but a bit of clear sky. And I took my last image of the day with the 15 stop. And this image was 4 minutes at f8 and ISO 200. You can see there's a bit of blue sky in the middle here. All the streaking clouds are just coming out from the middle. And you can see why I stated that I put the fishing pontoon to the left, because I didn't really want to block out my main view, which was the horizon where all these clouds were going to come from. Because without the pontoon just stuck to the left-hand side here, it would have been a very bland image. Here are the best 4 photos of this morning. The first image was just taken with the polarizing filter. The second image was taken with the K&F Concept 10-stop filter, and then the third and fourth image were taken with the 15-stop, and the third and fourth image were taken with the Hader 15-stop filter. So this is my final image of the day. The distortion is gone. I've used Adobe Lightroom to correct the distortion. The light pole is straight. I've had to crop in the image just slightly, but look at the clouds. The color is just perfect. And this was my goal for today. I'm really happy with the other image that I took with streaky clouds and all that, but this image doesn't have as much of an impact as this image here, because it just looks like the clouds right in the center on the horizon are just frozen in time. There's hardly any movement in them because they were hardly moving. The rest of the clouds though, because they're much closer, are moving much quicker, relatively speaking, compared to far off in the horizon. They're moving much quicker. So I'm getting more streakiness in those clouds. This is something that you have to think about when you're doing long exposures. And this is why I love taking long exposures. I really like these sorts of images. So I stated at the start of the video that I was breaking my cardinal rules, the rules that I go by, and that is not taking photos at lunchtime because the light is harsh. Today, the light wasn't harsh, it was very overcast, which made it a perfect time to go out at lunchtime and photograph some long exposures. And I came home with some great images. And you also can take images just like this by choosing the right sort of weather to go out on. Here in southeast Queensland, we're just getting close to summer. This is the time when we get all our storms about. So having overcast skies like this during the middle of the day is very common. So if you live in an area where you have overcast skies at this time of the year, go out when there's a lot of light about and you can take great long exposures just like this. So if you found value in this video, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps me out. Stay safe, enjoy your photography, no matter what photography you do, and I'll see you next time.